Are you kidding a dog? Sarah? Oh, that feels good. Go on, you can do whatever. Hey!
Francisco deu um grande passo na tentativa de aproximar a ciência de Deus. Ele disse que as teorias do Big Bang e da evolução não contradizem a existência de Deus como Criador. O discurso foi feito na Academia Pontifícia de Ciências. O Papa disse que o Big Bang explicaria a origem do universo e que ela não entra em oposição à ideia da intervenção criativa de Deus. Sobre a teoria da evolução, defendida pelo biólogo Charles Darwin, o pontífice afirmou que Deus concedeu autonomia aos seres que criou. E eles evoluíram por milênios até se tornarem o que são hoje. E, portanto, não há contradição com o conceito da criação divina.
Porque a evolução pressupõe a criação dele.
A Assembleia de Alagoas aprovou. Professores estão proibidos de falar sobre temas ideológicos, religiosos ou morais em sala de aula. Por exemplo, ensinar Darwin e a evolução das espécies, contestar a história de Adão e Eva, abordar Freud e a sexualidade terá como pena suspensão ou demissão do serviço público. Na Câmara, a Cunholândia ou Cunhistão, 3 projetos propõem leis de teor semelhante. Nas assembleias de São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Rio Grande do Sul, Goiás e Distrito Federal, projetos de lei no mesmo caminho.
They have alopecia when it's far from some, hereditary thing. But they lost all the hair when they went through puberty as well. Loads of mates in the pub. One beer too many, they'll have so when they're sharing the teeth like that.
Amnesia. I just felt a strong connection with her the first time I met her, and it was unexpected because she was the quiet one. She wasn't sure at first. She waited until she was sure of me, I think, until she became my friend. She just is the epitome of still waters running deep. She was.
Sorry, your peanuts have disappeared. I will download more. Meanwhile, have a banana and some milk.
Essa foi uma piada de Howard Carter sobre ter aberto a tumba de Tutankhamon. Imaginei Lord Carnarvon por trás dizendo, tipo, o que você tá vendo? E o Carter dizendo, coisas maravilhosas.
Eu não tô acreditando. Nós encontramos uma das criaturas mais notáveis e uma das mais inesperadas.
Será que esses ossos poderão finalmente trazer nosso passado à luz? Que histórias eles poderão contar sobre como nos tornamos humanos? Uma nova luz brilha no nascimento da humanidade. As altas planícies ao noroeste de Joanesburgo foram chamadas de o berço da humanidade. Em 1930 e 40, fósseis encontrados aqui nos deram os primeiros vislumbres importantes de nossos primeiros ancestrais. Depois, durante décadas, as descobertas pareceram ter cessado. Mas agora, das cavernas profundas do berço, chegam duas novas descobertas que poderão reformular a compreensão do nosso passado mais antigo.
O que é isso? Tem dentes?
Não são só centenas de ossos. São milhares de ossos. Eu nunca tinha visto nem sonhado com nada, nem imaginava essa riqueza nesse local.
Ossos que poderão esclarecer um período de milhões de anos muito importante em nossa evolução e que há muito tempo tem sido um mistério.
Tem um espaço muito grande no registro de fósseis, com apenas alguns pequenos fragmentos.
O registro de fósseis sugere que neste espaço está o nascimento da humanidade. O nascimento do gênero Homo. Ele é talvez o episódio menos entendido e mais importante de nossa evolução. Antes dele, era o mundo do Australopiteco, uma criatura simiesca, com um minúsculo cérebro. Lucy é o exemplo típico do Australopiteco. Ela andava ereta, mas pertencia ao mundo dos símios.
Se eu visse um Australopiteco bem ao longe de mim, eu com certeza chamaria o tratador de zoológico e diria, ei, o macaco fugiu.
Um australopiteco é uma espécie de macaco bípede. Se você voltasse no tempo e encontrasse um deles caminhando pela savana, o que você veria seria animais caminhando eretos como nós fazemos, mas eles teriam um corpo menor. O cérebro não seria tão grande, portanto a cabeça seria menor, mas a mandíbula e dentes seriam enormes.
O registro fóssil sugere que em algum lugar entre 2 e 3 milhões de anos atrás, este australopiteco simiesco evoluiu para a primeira espécie reconhecidamente humana, o Homo erectus.
Eles têm cérebro grande e cara pequena, adaptações para usar ferramentas.
Se víssemos o Homo erectus e outros numa rua, eu provavelmente ligaria para o 911 e diria, tem um cara estranho aqui, por favor, peça para alguém vir colocar uma roupa nele.
O maior mistério que a paleontologia enfrenta hoje é tentar entender como, quando e onde ocorreu a transição do Australopiteco para o Homo.
Durante anos, a única espécie que preencheu essa lacuna foi uma criatura chamada Homo habilis, mas foi encontrado tão pouco sobre ela que suas origens permaneceram um enigma, até agora. O crânio é extremamente frágil. A equipe examina cuidadosamente a área em torno dele.
Eu acho que...
De que tamanho que é? Esse é perfeito.
Em seguida, eles começam o trabalhoso processo de remoção de cada pequeno fragmento de osso que circunda o crânio.
Temos sacos médios agora. Olha isso.
Finalmente, eles delicadamente raspam a terra para liberá-lo.
Toma bastante cuidado com isso.
É muito delicado.
Pode deixar.
Todo mundo começou a sentir todos esses pontos de tensão em torno da remoção do crânio quando soubemos que ele estava prestes a sair. Nós só tínhamos 2 pessoas lá embaixo trabalhando nisso, a Becca e a Marina. Trabalhando e trabalhando e trabalhando, nós ficamos chamando as 2 de volta, mas elas não saíam, porque sabiam que estavam perto do seu objetivo e pouco mais tarde elas conseguiram. É isso aí. É isso aí. É tão frágil.
Com todos segurando a respiração, rezando para que não quebrasse, o fragmento de crânio é finalmente levantado e delicadamente colocado em uma caixa.
É isso aí.
Em seguida, ele começa a sua subida lenta, deixando a caverna pela primeira vez em talvez milhões de anos.
É isso aí, gente. Vamos pegá-lo. Foram muito bem. Parabéns.
Passava todo tipo de coisa pela nossa cabeça, mas ninguém estava entediado, ninguém se achava acadêmico demais, estava todo mundo explodindo de felicidade.
Você me odiaria se eu desse uma olhada antes de te abraçar?
Por favor, pegue.
Parabéns.
Eu nem quero te abraçar enquanto você segura essa coisa mesmo.
É o momento que todos estavam esperando. Eles esperam que este fragmento de crânio seja a peça reveladora para identificar a criatura de Rising Star como um australopiteco ou um membro de nosso próprio gênero.
Olhando para o frontal esquerdo, esta parte aqui, a órbita, e em seguida a parte da caixa do cérebro logo atrás da órbita, é possível dizer que se trata de uma peça muito importante.
Grandes sulcos orbitais com recortes por trás indicam que se trata de um australopiteco. Mas os sulcos menores da testa têm evidências de ser um crânio mais arredondado, como o de um homo.
Já temos o gênero.
Nós temos.
Temos o gênero.
Isto é indiscutivelmente um homem.
O veredito da equipe é claro. Eles têm um novo membro do nosso gênero.
Trabalhamos bem?
Sim, vocês trabalham muito bem.
Agora a pergunta é: o que ele pode nos dizer sobre o amanhecer misterioso da humanidade?
Estamos certos de que este é o gênero Homo. Nosso gênero. Estamos certos de que é uma nova espécie. E é onde estamos agora, a ideia de que nós descobrimos um grande número de indivíduos, homens e mulheres, jovens e velhos, de uma nova espécie no gênero Homo.
À medida que a análise continua, os ossos da caverna Rising Star estão finalmente prontos para serem apresentados ao mundo.
Temos uma nova espécie de humano do início do gênero Homo, e isso é tremendamente emocionante. Nós nunca tivemos uma quantidade tão grande nesse período de transição entre os últimos australopitecos e os primeiros membros de nosso gênero, e nossa, temos muita quantidade agora.
Para os membros da equipe, os fósseis sugerem uma criatura diferente de tudo que já foi encontrado antes.
Estamos olhando para criaturas que têm pés de humanoide, mãos de humanoide e dentes de humanoide. Tudo que interage diretamente com o meio ambiente é Homo. E tudo que é tipo central, você sabe, o tronco, a arquitetura da coluna vertebral, o cérebro, essas características são mais primitivas, entende? É como se a evolução estivesse nos moldando de fora para dentro.
Nós chamamos a nova espécie de Homo naledi, e naledi significa estrela em Soto, e batizamos a câmara de onde os fósseis vieram, e ainda existem outros por lá, de Câmara de Naledi, que é Câmara de Estrelas.
O Homo naledi é uma mistura estranha de macaco e humano, com um cérebro e corpo pequenos, braços como os de chimpanzé, mãos e dentes de um humano, com sobrancelhas pequenas e pernas longas, e que provavelmente andava longas distâncias.
O naledi é uma surpresa, de muitas e muitas maneiras. Ele tem um cérebro incrivelmente minúsculo, um cérebro que equivale a menos de 1/3 do cérebro de um humano moderno. O que intriga é que não sabemos a idade desses fósseis. Podemos dizer com o que se parecem porque temos muitos deles, mas se tem 3.000 anos ou 3 milhões de anos, mudaria muito o nosso entendimento sobre a evolução humana.
Essas criaturas estavam à beira de se tornarem humanas, mas também estavam muito perto do mundo dos australopitecos. Isso torna a pergunta: as implicações disso são de longo alcance.
Se de fato os hominídeos de Rising Star estavam descartando seus mortos, estamos falando de alguns pequenos cérebros hominídeos fazendo isso. E isso começa a mudar nosso pensamento sobre o tipo de atributos cognitivos e neurais de que precisamos para ter esse tipo de comportamento. E isso se torna muito interessante.
Isso se encaixa com novas formas de pensarmos sobre a transição do macaco para o humano. Muitos cientistas agora acreditam que um elemento-chave dessa transição foi o crescimento de uma cooperação cada vez mais forte e laços sociais. Então, se a câmara de Rising Star for de fato um túmulo, talvez isso indique que foi aqui, no alvorecer da humanidade, que esses laços sociais mais complexos começaram a se formar. Essa possibilidade irá gerar um grande debate à medida que outros cientistas se juntarem à discussão.
A evolução é complicada. Há diferentes experiências, populações tentando adaptações diferentes, tentando formas diferentes de estarem no mundo.
A natureza é confusa, a natureza é complicada, a natureza não respeita nosso desejo de colocar fósseis em caixas limpinhas e classificar espécies. Mas mesmo assim é o que fazemos.
Os fósseis da Rising Star têm um mosaico de características do australopiteco e do Homo. Eles parecem mostrar que no alvorecer da humanidade, houve múltiplas experiências evolutivas com símios com cérebro e corpo pequeno, mas que andavam eretos.
Essas não são espécies totalmente formadas e há cruzamentos importantes entre esses grupos. Algumas características adaptativas evoluíram em um grupo e outras em outros grupos. E através desses cruzamentos, finalmente apareceram juntas. E se esse for o caso, talvez nós nunca possamos traçar linhas puras entre qualquer um desses grupos e mais tarde o Homo.
Bom, talvez a melhor metáfora é uma corrente trançada. E isso foi trazido até nós pela descoberta desses hominídeos todos misturados, como o Naled, o Sediba e outros. Eles nos mostram que tem muitas experiências acontecendo.
Algumas dessas experiências evolutivas desapareceram. Outras se juntaram e se cruzaram.
Eu acho que temos que começar a olhar para essas espécies que estamos encontrando como indivíduos dentro de uma corrente trançada. É claro que eles têm algo a ver com a população de hoje, que somos nós, os bilhões de seres humanos que estão vivos hoje. Mas é difícil dizer qual deles é o mais responsável por nós estarmos aqui.
So, I called National Geographic to put together an expedition. Fast.
How you getting that side?
The entrance is very, very difficult. To get to it, you have to move through a 7.5-inch slot, wiggling your way across sharp rocks before you drop into this remarkable little chamber. And the floor is quite literally comprised of parts of the bodies of these human ancestors.
Pushing that now on the team. Look at this.
Whoa!
Tell them they're a go to collect. All right. You got the fossil, huh?
It appears, based upon the context that we have discovered this incredible assemblage of hominid fossils in, is that they were deliberately placed there by their next of kin after death. Homo naledi was doing something that until this moment we thought was unique to modern humans. That is, deliberate disposal of the dead.
We do have our genus.
What these discoveries are telling us is that there's a lot out there to be found. That we actually don't have the whole story of human evolution.
I mean, it looks like it might be a fragment of like the superorbital torus or something. Oh my God.
The Homo naledi fossils are extraordinary in a wide variety of ways. We know they have the characters of an early member of the genus Homo. By comparing their morphology to other early hominids, we can see that we would place them right at the base of the lineage that leads to us. We've never seen a non-human that shares so many primitive and yet sometimes advanced characters. Tiny brain, curved fingers, but a generally human-like hand, long legs, and a human foot.
We've all seen crime investigation shows where they find a skull in the woods and they take it to a forensic artist who builds the soft tissue of the face back on, and it becomes a recognizable entity, and the crime is sometimes solved. But how do you do that for an extinct species? So this is a reconstruction of Homo naledi. It's based on fossils that were found the fall of 2013 deep inside of a cave in South Africa. It's a very interesting species. It's not very much like anything we've found before, so I doubt if there's going to be much argument that this represents a new species. Basically what I do is study the evidence that exists in the fossil record, and I use that evidence to predict what a face might look like. The key to all that is comparative anatomy. So I have to do a lot of facial dissection of great apes, African apes and orangutans and humans. From the very beginning, this was such a fascinating ancestor to work on because it's such a weird combination of primitive and more human-like traits. You start with a skull, and certain measurements on that skull tell you some things about the soft tissue of the face. The ears are a boondoggle, really, for people like me who reconstruct heads, because there's not much information a skull can tell you about the form of the ears. It's not true with noses. Naledi had a spine right at the base of the nasal opening that projects out of the nasal cavity. And that tells you that there is at least somewhat of a projecting nose. And that's a human characteristic. And skin color is a problem I obviously have to deal with. When I'm thinking about the skin color that should be appropriate for a specific prehistoric hominid, I look to the populations that are living there today. In this case, I'm dealing with a form that lived in South Africa, so the San people were a good model for me to base the idea of skin color on. The actual pattern of the hair, we simply don't have that kind of information in the fossil record, so I'm making a guess there, and I'm using commonalities in the hair pattern and faces that you see in great apes and humans. It's a wonderful thing to be in the position of being the guy who figures out what some ancient species that's never been found before looked like. So the final form of a reconstruction of a face is often a surprise to me. It's the cumulative result of all these individual anatomical decisions, but it has this big ta-da moment at the end of the reconstruction, which is almost like the end of a mystery story where an identity is revealed. And that's an exciting moment for me, to have that often surprising moment of seeing the face as an entirety for the first time. Art can function as a portal to take you to a variety of places. But in the case of the art that I do, it usually has something to do with taking you back in time to look at these early ancestors. Lacking a time machine, which I dearly wish I had, I wanted these paintings and sculpture to be able to sort of function as that kind of portal, and to take people to a different time and have them, for a moment, just be able to imagine this creature alive. If you're curious at all about what it means to be human, then you've got to be curious about how it got to be that way. I think it's inconceivable almost to not be curious about how, what we are exactly, what kind of a phenomenon do we represent. Human evolution, as it turns out, is not a matter of everything we think of as humans slowly evolving in tandem. That here we are, ta-da, modern humans. It's more of a mosaic affair, with some things really evolving early and some things very late. So if you look at a particular ancestor in the lineup, one ancestor will have a different adaptive story, a different piece of the human puzzle that it added, let's say, than a later ancestor. And of course, their story is our story. It's one thing to study the bones of these creatures and be able to make inferences about how they lived, but it takes you to a completely further place to actually build a face and have something that looks like a real being, a living, breathing being, to represent these things. And I think it just helps people go all the way there in thinking of them as living beings.
Oh, check this guy out.
Human imagination is really part of our creativity. And as a species, we became very adept at imagining Plan B and Plan C. So our options aren't constrained to just one path that may fail. So that creativity arose as a survival mechanism, I think, and only late in human history did it start blossoming in forms like art and music. The evolution of humans, the arrival of humans on the planet, emerges as a really unique and fantastic event. And the human story is really nothing short of the story of a little corner of the universe becoming aware of itself.
For the Hall of Human Origins at the Smithsonian's Natural History Museum, paleo artist John Gurche sculpted a series of hominids, or early humans. Gurche and the Smithsonian curators chose poses that would reflect a signature characteristic of each species. A Homo erectus female is sculpted in mid-stride, carrying a dead antelope over her shoulder. A Homo heidelbergensis male squats next to an open fire, holding out a piece of meat. A Neanderthal female holds an animal hide in her teeth as she makes a piece of clothing. Gurche is now working on a model of Paranthropus boisei. As always, he starts with the fossil bones.
Right here, this collection of things that look like granola, this is actually a partial skeleton from one individual. And believe it or not, that has a lot of information contained in it that tells us something about the proportions of these critters. So, for example, this flange that you see on this humerus, or upper arm bone, speaks volumes about the kind of musculature that this individual had on its arm. It's because the muscle attachment sites are places where the muscles have stimulated bone growth and caused a rippling of the bone. So this flange, for example, tells you that a couple of the muscles of the arm were very well developed, and those are these two right here. And you can see I've given them quite a bit of development.
The skull reveals a central feature of Paranthropus boisei.
And basically, the species is a specialist in chewing tough vegetable food. And they have massive molars, like 4 times the size of ours, and they have bony crests to support very large chewing muscles on the skull. So we decided to have this individual pulling a tough root out of the ground. The contrast that's made between this individual and our hominids that are in our own ancestry living at the same time are sort of the path of the chewing machine and the path of the thinking machine, and this is the chewing machine.
1,000 miles north of Olduvai, it has exposed sediments that are over 1 million years older.
We drove up to the edge of this escarpment, and it just unfolded, and there it was. All of the sediments getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I could not wait to get down there. The driving force was find something. And then we walked out there.
Johansen recently shared with fellow paleontologist Neil Shubin his memories of the day he discovered the first small bone fragment of one of the most famous fossil skeletons ever found.
You know, my best recollection is that it was right in this area. And I looked at it and almost instantaneously said, that's a hominid. Just a fragment of elbow that led to the skeleton.
An international team of scientists helped Johansen recover almost half the bones of an individual who had lived 3.2 million years ago. They called her Lucy.
Finding Lucy was really the first step in this very long process of description, investigation, evaluation, hypothesis testing, trying to figure out where in the world she sat, like we are on the tree, on the human family tree.
This is the Lucy skeleton found by Don Johansen in Ethiopia. She's 3.2 million years old and very representative of Australopithecus, the next earlier phase of human evolution. And they are bipeds, relatively small brains, and no evidence so far of any stone tool use.
So the stone tool use comes in much later than Lucy and her brethren.
With early Homo.
What can we tell about this creature from the fossils?
When we look down here into the pelvis, we see evidence for bipedal walking, a commitment to walking on 2 legs that is very different from what we see among great apes. So when we look at a chimpanzee, in the hip, we see the hip bones behind. They're long, they're tall, they're up the creature's back. Whereas in a human, our hip bone is much broader front to back, much shorter, and wrapping around the side to put these muscles that control pelvic tilt during walking in an advantageous position. Then we can ask the question, is Lucy more like a human or more like a chimp? She has a very short blade on the pelvis, much more like a human. She has muscle attachments, much more like a human. It's a basically biped's architecture, and that's how we know that she walked on two legs. But there was a little bit of controversy. Even after that, some people said, well, how can we really be sure about that?
And how can we be sure?
Because we found these incredible things in northern Tanzania, older than Lucy, sandwiched between layers of volcanic ash. And it's not what you think, it's not bones. There was a volcanic eruption 3.75 million years ago. The volcanic ash came down on the Serengeti Plain, and animals walked across it. The ash hardened and was buried. In the 1970s, I was lucky enough to be with Mary Leakey out in this area, and we found the trails of hominid individuals left as they walked across that volcanic ash millions of years ago. It's an amazing, like a snapshot of time. They went for meters and meters and meters. There are no knuckle marks, no handprints, just bipedal footprints that look more or less like what you and I would leave on a beach. Human feet, we're all used to them, but they're really strange. Our big toe is in line with our other toes. We don't have a grasping big toe. We have arches, transverse and longitudinal in our feet. All these features are present at 3.75 million years ago in Australopithecus. Ancient, that it preceded by over 1 million years the expansion of the brain, the incorporation of stone tool technology.
We now have thousands of hominid fossils from the past 6 million years. They reveal several phases in the biological evolution of humans.
You have an early phase, Ardipithecus, whose anatomy allows it to climb in the woodlands and walk on two legs. We see Australopithecus as the next phase, Lucy a representative of this. It's a committed biped with a small brain, but still big teeth for chewing, big, robust faces. Their niche has expanded beyond Ardipithecus. They're in more open habitats. They're found throughout the African continent. And then the third phase of human evolution is our own genus, the genus Homo. And here we have a creature that really is a technological primate, depending more and more on culture.
Stone tools allow early humans to compete first with scavengers and then with predators. They broaden their diets and ultimately their geographic range, leaving Africa. Recently, in the Republic of Georgia, hominid fossils were discovered that are as old as the Olduvai fossils. They include the most complete early Homo skull ever found.
That is going to give us insight into the biology of our ancestors, the ancestors of Homo sapiens. And it's a great illustration of how paleontology is not a dead science. Paleontology is the science by which we learn about our past, how we became human.
The last one, Walking with Cavemen, I only saw recently. Nonetheless, I still enjoyed it a lot, as it was well made and taught me a lot more about human evolution than I knew. Perhaps what I was most pleased with was the fact that costumes and makeup on human actors were used instead of CGI, like in that episode of Walking with Prehistoric Beasts. I have to give credit to the production team, the effects look quite convincing, and each new species of human has its own unique appearance, allowing us to see progression as time goes on, with the characters becoming more and more human-like. I'm a big fan of the soundtrack, too. It may not be the Jurassic theme from Walking with Dinosaurs, but it does have that exciting tune that fits the subject of the documentary very well. The series begins with a clan of upright walking apes called Afarensis on the plains of Africa. The famous fossil Lucy is made into a main character for this segment, depicted as a mother to a small baby. Her tribe is engaged in a territorial dispute with a rival clan, while at the same time, two males within Lucy's own tribe fight to replace the recently killed leader and take over the group. Although they look slightly human, they act pretty much like ordinary apes, which makes sense. The filmmakers are trying to show exactly when apes started to evolve into us, and this first segment starts us off with animals we can easily associate with the ones we're familiar with today. Next we move on to find 3 separate species of intelligent apes, and the episode doesn't tell us which one will evolve into humans, a clever way of keeping things interesting. There's the scary-looking Boise-eye, which look like a cross between gorillas and orangutans that walk like humans, the even scarier habilis, which look very much like people but covered with scraggly hair, and the chimpanzee-like rudolfensis, which, more than anything else, look like the ape men from the 2001 Lost World. I really liked this shot of the rudolfensis clan standing in a line with the sun behind them so they look more shadowy. It's a pretty frightening image. Aside from their differing looks, each ape species is shown to have different human behavior, with habilis showing themselves resourceful, picking apart a beehive for the honey inside and working together to chase off a lion, while Boise-eye seems comparatively laid back. We later travel to the next stage in evolution to meet ergaster, which have started to develop many traits we take for granted, but are actually unique to us as human beings. Things like the ability to track animals by logically determining from footprints that an animal went in a certain direction, or the ability to create language and communicate with each other in more sophisticated ways. Most noticeably, the tribe we focus on is tied together by family instead of one dominant male like in earlier, more primitive apes. I especially like this iconic scene of the hunters walking across a salt plain in pursuit of a dying wildebeest, with one of the men carrying a crocodile tooth in his mouth. It's a pretty unforgettable image. Next, we travel to Asia to meet Erectus, which looks similar to ergaster but in a much different environment. They happen across a giant ape called Gigantopithecus, brought to life by a puppet. There's a very thought-provoking scene here where a member of the group dies and the others simply leave him behind. Some well-written narration tells us that although these people look and act like us, they still live in an animalistic lifestyle that doesn't honor the dead. Their mindset is so literal that they don't have imagination, ceremonies, and other things we have nowadays.
Unlike you and me, these people can only see the world around them as it is. They can't do what we take for granted and picture worlds of a different kind.
Finally, we make it to the Ice Age to see Neanderthals, as one certain tribe is faced with a tough decision where winter is closing in and they need to move to find more food and supplies. But the leader's wife is pregnant and in no position to travel great distances, so they have to go on one last hunt that will determine if they can settle down. The actors here do a particularly good job displaying the conflict they feel and how much is depending on their next choice, all without any real words being spoken. We learn a lot about Neanderthals, as they are able to sustain horrendous injuries and simply walk them off, and how they are intelligent enough to hunt mammoths by pushing a boulder off a cliff to bring one down. Popular culture seems to think of Neanderthals as stupid cavemen, but this documentary shows that they were actually quite well suited to their habitat and very successful for the time being. It's only the end of the Ice Age and our Homo sapien ancestors being more intelligent and imaginative that makes us the dominant species of human in the end. So, as expected, Walking with Cavemen was yet another solid entry in BBC's prehistoric series, and maybe the one I learned the most new information from. I knew almost nothing about human evolution before watching it, and it taught me a lot of new things, which I think is the highest compliment you can give a documentary.